Hey guys, my name's Andy, and welcome to Let's Play All the Games. E3 2016 is just around the corner, and that means it's time to start getting your bets and predictions in. We're going to be doing a small series of videos doing just that, starting with Sony. So without any further ado, here you go, our predictions for Sony E3 2016. First of all, let's get the stuff we know out of the way. We know that a PlayStation 4.5/PlayStation Neo, whatever you want to call it, console is coming out. We know they're going to be pushing PlayStation VR really hard, and we know we're going to see some more intel on games that were just announced last year like Horizon, which does look really cool, and I'm looking very forward to that. There's also a few things we can expect, like a bevy of little indie games that'll get showcased, and more footage of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Those are the basics. Now, let's get on to the fun stuff. First off, let's start with hardware. As I mentioned earlier, PlayStation 4.5 is coming out, but the PlayStation base console is still going to be around. It's sold, what, 40-50 million already? So I think, in an effort to make that really the supreme console of this generation, really push it harder and harder, they're going to do a massive price drop on it. How big? I think they're taking it down to $299. That's my first prediction. I think they're going to take the PlayStation 4 console down to $299 American dollars. Little cast her eye joke there. Moving on. PlayStation VR. Now, PlayStation VR, they're banking really hard on that, just like everybody else in the gaming industry is right now, but they're kind of getting a later start when you consider that a couple of VR headsets are already out now. That means people are already having a chance to experiment with it and say, is it for me, is it not, is it really something, is it nothing? While they're one of the more cheap alternatives in comparison to some of the others, they're still $399 for the base coming out on top of a console. With that said, I think that means we're going to see a price drop listed before it ever comes out this fall of $50 on PlayStation VR. Why? Get it in as many living rooms as possible. And that is a very important thing. Next up, software. I truly think this E3 is going to be all about reboots, remakes, remasters, and sequels. And that's not a bad thing, because a lot of these have not seen the light of day in quite some time. First up, it's time to rejoin our man Kratos in God of War. We've seen leaks about this already. God of War this time around looks to be heading towards sort of a Norse mythology vibe. We've seen a few things, some concept art, even short video feed, whatever. It's pretty reliable that this is going to happen because, let's be honest, we haven't heard much from PlayStation's signature first-party character action title in a while, and it certainly has yet to make its debut this console generation. I think now is the time. I also think we're going to see it either leading off E3 or ending E3. You either start with God of War or end of God of War, but you don't put Kratos in the corner or in the middle. But either way, we're getting it. Next up, Crash Bandicoot. Crash Bandicoot has been absent for quite some time, but we've been getting hints all year long that maybe it's about time for him to make a comeback. Notably, at PlayStation Experience in December, Sean Layden started the show wearing a Crash Bandicoot t-shirt. He never mentioned it, he never drew attention to it, but it was blazoned quite big across his executive chest. We do know that they love to tease things at PSX that happened later at E3. If you don't believe me, look back at the Final Fantasy PSX announcement, knowing full well they were going to make the E3 Final Fantasy announcement last year. Something to keep in mind. Also, we've had loose talk out of all places, PlayStation South America, as well as some voice actor chatter, but most importantly, in the recently released Uncharted 4, you actually sit down and play Crash Bandicoot on a PlayStation in the middle of the game. Come on. If we're not getting a Crash Bandicoot game, they are trolling us on purpose. Either way, my prediction, we're getting some form of Crash Bandicoot. If we don't get a Crash Bandicoot announcement at this year's E3, I will eat my hat. I will eat your hat. I will go on a freaking hat binge. I won't like it, but that's what I'll do. Now, what form that announcement may take, I don't know yet. It could be a simple HD trilogy of 1, 2, and 3, could be a brand new game in the series, could be an HD reboot, remaster, remake a la the recently released Ratchet & Clank. Any of those are good. I will say this, however, if we're getting a new game in the series, I think we'll also see an HD trilogy collection alongside it. But either way, we're getting Crash Bandicoot. Moving on to number 3. It's well known that Sony first-party games like to tease the release of other forthcoming Sony first-party games somewhere in the gameplay. Most notably of this, of course, is how Sly Cooper 4 was announced on a movie billboard in Infamous 2. So with that being said, in the recently released Ratchet & Clank on PS4, Insomniac took extra time to mention the existence of Resistance Fall of Man. They didn't exactly call it that, it was an in-game joke, but that's what it was. And it's not like they put it in a corner as an Easter egg. They put it front and center of a cutscene you have to witness in the game. They basically hung a hat on it. So, that says something, doesn't it? Now, of course, we also know Insomniac's other main project, Song of the Deep, is ending up in July, finishing and releasing then, so makes you wonder, what else are they going to be working on? Now, factor that in with the fact that we haven't really had much of Sony's first-person shooters showing up this gen, other than Killzone, which Shadowfall was, middling successful. So maybe it's time to bring Resistance back. Now, does that happen in the form of a remake, remaster, or brand new sequel? I don't know. But I would like to see a sequel, because that's a game that already had so many story elements that were just never finished, never fully explored, and I'd love to see them done justice. Hopefully we'll get something like that, but either way, I think we're also getting Resistance. Next up, we know Hideo Kojima has a new studio. We know he has a new game, and we know that game is coming exclusively to PlayStation. Now, what will that game be? I don't know, but what I do think is that we're going to get Hideo Kojima, Guillermo del Toro, and Norman Reedus, or some combination of those three people walking out on stage announcing this new game, which will have nothing at all to do with Silent Hill. It'll be called, I don't know, something like Quiet Mountains or something. Look, the fact is, I hope it's a spiritual successor to PT. It may not be. It may be more to do with the recently released logo of Kojima Studios, which is more of an astronaut spaceman type deal, I don't know. But I would love to see a horror sequel coming out from Kojima. I would love to see a spiritual successor to PT, and I think almost all of us would. And we know that Guillermo and Norman Reedus are on board at the drop of a hat. So, I think we're getting it. Fingers crossed, and thumbs up. It's worth noting that there's a couple of other games that haven't been mentioned too much that I think we'll also see a little bit of, more highlighted in like the indie, free-to-play models, whatever. Drawn to Death is in its beta right now. I think we're going to see more on that. I also think Suda51's Let It Die is going to make another appearance. Recently showed up again at PAX East, and I think now they're going to start making its big and final launch push. So keep that in mind as well. Finally, this gen, it's worth noting that survival horror and JRPGs already have a huge presence. They were largely absent from the PS3 console till later days. Now, from day one, they've made a huge push, and I'm happy to say that, and I'm hoping that we're going to see new announcements for both of those as well. Now, barring any new IP, which of course is always hard to predict, although we will see new IP this year. Let me go ahead and get that out there. But barring that, I think there's a couple of franchises that are also poised for their comeback that will be listed this year. Survival horror-wise, I think we're about to get another Siren game. Now, it could be announced at TGS, but I think it's going to be announced at E3. I think it's time for that. I think it's another exclusive survival horror franchise that plays very differently than the other ones, and I think it's time to bust that out again. Notably, I've had this prediction for a while, but just after that, they announced that for some reason, Siren Blood Curse is coming out. I think it's Blood Curse. Siren is coming out as the PlayStation Plus free game for June. Coincidence? Maybe. But since I already had that theory, I'm taking it as confirmation, biased or not. Alongside that, JRPGs being what they are these days, I think they're going to bring back another one. I think we're about to see another Wild Arms. It's been a while. It has a very unique setting in that Western fantasy thing combined, and I think people are really longing for it. Now, of course, they did just release Wild Arms 3 as a PS2 title on the PS4. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it has been gone for so long. With the prevalence of JRPGs, I think we'll see it again. So, outside of any outlandish predictions, like Gabe Newell walking out and dropping Half-Life 3, or us going back to Yharnam and Bloodborne 2, that's my main expectations for Sony's E3, with one final thought. VR is what they're pushing, and pushing hard. And I think to make themselves stand out, they want to deliver a social experience to their VR, something that people can jump right into and feel connected from the get-go, not just to the game, but to other people. And they know how to do that because, quite frankly, they've done it before. What we're looking at here is some sort of free social service, if you will, with perhaps microtransaction, little mini content people can buy to customize their avatars, have spaces they can go chat with and hang out in. I think they're bringing back PlayStation Home alongside PlayStation VR. I think the whole point of it is going to be a VR headset eyes first version of PlayStation Home that you can immerse yourself in and interact with other people. Now, I think you can also do third person because, let's face it, if you're going to spend the change on a nice little t-shirt for your avatar, well, you want to be able to see it. But either way, I think PlayStation Home makes a comeback in conjunction with PlayStation VR. So there you have it, my main predictions for Sony's E3 2016. Drop us a line in the comments, let us know if you agree, disagree, or if you have other ideas that we never even thought of, or things you'd like to see, things you'd hate to see, etc. Let us know what you're thinking, and we'd love to continue the conversation in the comments. That's going to about do it for me. Happy E3 season. Till next time, see you, Space Cowboys.